Hey everybody, I'm Ramon Mejia. This is the LitRPG podcast, episode number 171, and I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews. This week I have 6 new LitRPG reviews just for you folks at home. Before we get into that, I want to give a quick shout out to Eliana Ugarte for becoming the latest Patreon supporter for the LitRPG podcast. She's helping to keep the podcast going, helping to keep the bills paid, costs covered, books are expensive, and she helps do so at patreon.com/geekbytespodcast. So thank you, Eliana, for your support. The 6 new LitRPG reviews we have for you this week include, though, the Azure Dragon, Heroic Fantasy Saga, the Artar Chronicles, book number 3. Also, Rise of the Crimson Order, a Crematoria Online LitRPG novel. And then also the Phoenix of Altria, digital sorcery book number 2. Also Executioner Reign of Blood, which is the second book in that series, the Chasm of Corruption series. Also Sentence to Troll 2. A lot of book books, book 2s in the series this week. Then also Monster LitRPG series, The Beetle, which is a new series. Russian translation, let you know how it turns out. But before we get into all that good stuff, we're going to go into LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we're going to begin with a sale from S.L. Rowland, author of the Sinister Troll series. He is putting book 1 up for sale for 99 cents to help promote the release of book 2, which we're reviewing on the show this week. So, nice sale. Also on sale is going to be Crota book 1 in the God's Game series. We gave it a good review, although the cover art did change between what you see here and the original cover art. So it also took me a little second to recognizing what it was. But the author says the book 1 in the series is going to be on sale from the 14th of May to May 21st, with the second book in the series coming out on May 22nd. So go check that first one out. It's on sale. And Rohan M. Binder was nice enough actually to write into the podcast at feedback@geekbytespodcast.com to let us know about his promotional sale. We always love getting good news like this from authors, because you, the readers, get to benefit, get to learn about, what's on sale this week, what's not, and you get some really good deals sometimes, including some really good stuff coming up in a second. I'll see you. And here's that second. Audible recently changed how they organize and give away promotional audiobook codes, which has incentivized a big group of LitRPG and Guild authors to put together a massive audiobook giveaway contest. It's been organized very kindly by Richard Hummel. The group's intent is to promote their pages, Facebook, Twitter, newsletters, websites, whatever the case is, while giving people the chance to win 38 audiobooks. That's right. Now that's not 38 total entries. That's 38 audiobooks per winner. This is a massive audiobook. It's probably the biggest one I personally have ever seen and been a part of. I put some in there, of course. I have tons of audiobook codes I'm not using. But there are going to be a total of 10 winners who win. Each one of those winners wins all 38 audiobooks. There's going to be 5 US winners and 5 UK winners. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean they're in those countries. That means those are the codes you're going to get. Audible at this point is really only letting people use either the old legacy ones, which are kind of universal, or US codes or UK codes. And so hopefully those cover you in some way, shape, or form. But again, 5 US code winners, 5 US winners, US code winners. And again, audiobooks coming from big names, not just titles you never heard of, but people like Dakota Crowd, James A. Hunter, Michael Chatfield, Ramon Mejia, Charles Dean, Harmon Cooper, Kinsey Hanna, so many other people. There's literally dozens. And it's dozens, literally. I mean, there's 30 audiobooks, dozens of authors who have come together to do this promotion thing. And again, there's a lot of ways to entry. The more things you do, the more entries you get to win. We have 2 links in the show notes, one for the Facebook page that's running this, and also there's also a dedicated website where it's literally just you have a list of things you can click on and sign up for and and follow, or sign up for newsletters, and each one of those things will get you an entry. And again, this is a super big, massive event, so definitely go check it out. Especially if you're an audiobook lover, you could really save a lot of money doing this. So congratulations to anybody who wins, and I hope this goes well. Also, in other LitRPG news, though, we have James A. Hunter, one of the gentlemen who was nice enough to put his audiobooks into this, and shout out to Press, who's that does a lot of stuff. He announced literally today that they are going to be redoing the cover art for the Viridian 8 Online series, the main series. James Hunter said that this is to keep it in line with the new expanded Viridian 8 Online cover arts, just to make sure they're all like uniform, they look nice together. That doesn't look like they're two separate, universes. And he revealed the first new cover art for Viridian 8 Online Cataclysm. So here it is. It's very nice. Very pretty, and this is kind of something that I've seen a couple other publishers do. I know Mountain Door Press also recently redid all their cover art, and it's done amazing for their sales. Like a number of the books in that series have also gotten bestseller tags again, because people are becoming reinterested in the series, or people who may have just judged by the cover art now get to see new stuff, and so reignites their interest in it. So hopefully that does the same thing for Viridian Online. Really good series. I've enjoyed every single book in the main series, of course, and so hope and wish the best. One thing striking about this particular cover art, though, is that I feel like the guy on the cover art looks a lot like James A. Hunter, who's the author. And I double checked this to make sure. And yep, lo and behold, if you're watching the video for the podcast, you're actually going to see these two pictures side by side. One of the cover art for the new Viridian Online cover art, Cataclysm cover, and James A. Hunter right next to him. And I gotta say, there's a distinct similarity there, especially when it comes to those whiskers down the sides for James A. Hunter's official picture on his author page for Amazon. So is it intentional? Maybe it's just the author, so the cover artist, promoting the author in some way, or it could just be that the main character is supposed to be like the author, and that's not unusual. I think similar things happen with my own novel, so there you go. Okay, moving on to some other LitRPG news, the last bit here. Author A. Carlson and narrator Annalise Rennie were guests on the Anchor podcast talking about World Tree Online, The Curse of Furling Ridge, First Dive. They talk about what gamelet is and what it's like to narrate. Go check it out. It's an entertaining listen. The beginning section definitely prioritizes or emphasizes the narration part from Annalise. But it entertaining listen all around. We'll link in the show notes, of course, to go check that out. Okay, that's it for LitRPG news. We're going to move on to stuff that is out now. Haven't had a chance to read it. Came out real recently. That includes Vic Connor's Story Hunters. Also, Daniel Schienhofen released his latest novel in the Apocalypse Gate series called Elven Accord. So, I mean, honestly, this book is actually really doing well. Have only been out for like a day. It's already, I think, top 300 by now. We're doing much better than that by now, but serious fan base for this. And so congratulations, Daniel. Also out, though, is Heavy Armor, an Epic Fantasy, the second book in the Killstreak series. Also out is Manifest, the Fairy's Tale book, number 1. And the second book in the Champion is Playing series, Code Hero. I honestly totally forgot with my kid coming that this is out. I was supposed to have read this. I haven't read it yet, so I'm sorry, publisher, who was nice enough to give me an advance copy. Just, oops. But it's out now, so guys, check it out. I enjoyed book 1. Okay, out in new LitRPG audiobooks, though. Actually, there are quite a few this week, including Air Today, Gone Upon Tomorrow. The second book in the Good Guy series is from Eric Uglin. It's out as an audiobook. The fourth book in the Awaken Online series called Dominion. That's the most recent release for the ebook. It's also out as an audiobook now, and that's been doing really well. So congratulations, Travis Backwell. The second book in the Dark Elf Chronicle series, Survivors, by Dave Wilmarth, is out as an audiobook. The third book in the Dan the Destroyer series, Gold Girls and Glory series, I should say, called Dan the Destroyer, is out as an audiobook. The Viridian Gate Online Expanding Universe novel called Firebrand is also out as an audiobook. And Killing Time, a novel of the realms, a humorously epic LitRPG adventure by C.M. Carney, is out as an audiobook. So all kinds of great stuff for you to listen to this week as well. Some of these things are actually out as part of that giveaway, by the way. Okay, on to upcoming LitRPG. This is just where I read a bunch of stuff that's coming out in the near future. Feel free to skip ahead, but there are a few new entries on this list as well. May 18th, it'll be the 5th book in the Guardians of the Roundtable series. And May 20th, it'll be Web of Worlds, the 4th book in the Reality Bender series. Looking forward to reading that one as well. May 21st is going to be Alform book number 2 called Scurfear. That title is just, I can never remember how to say it. May 22nd, The Labyrinth, which is the second book in the God's Game series. May 31st is Dungeon Eternium, the Divine Dungeon book number 5. We finally got some cover art for that. It'll be out on May 31st, and the cover art looks really nice. I believe they also, the whole new cover thing is part of this. Like, this series is ending, and so the cover art's getting a relaunch for the entire series just to help promote this one and get people interested in this whole series, because it's really good. I've always enjoyed it, but the cover art for some people I've heard has been not the most enticing, and the new cover art here, super awesome, like really engaging. So I'm sure it's going to get a huge boost. On June 1st, it'll be Realm of Noria, the second book in that series, called The Life. On June 1st, it'll also be Kingdom Come, a LitRPG Dragon Rider adventure, the Crematoria Online Chronicles book number 3. On June 1st, it'll be the 7th book in the System Apocalypse series, called Stars Awoken. The second book in the Discardium series will be out on June the 10th, called Apostles of the Sleeping Gods. The third book in the Rogue Dungeon series will be out on June 11th, called Troll Nation. The 6th book in the Good Guys series will be out on June 13th, called Home, Siege Home. The second book in the Adam Online series will be out on June the 20th. The third book in the Jin Tamer series, called Evolution, will be out on June 20th as well. The June 25th will be for Shift, book number 2. July, all the way up into July now, it'll be a book called The Time Master, Interworld Network, book number 1. On July 23rd, it'll be Cannibal, Demon of the Mind, a post-apocalyptic survival LitRPG series. And August the 5th, it'll be the third book in Champions' playing series, called Hero Go. And that cover art's a little interesting. But that's it for stuff that's coming out. On to new releases and reviews. Okay, first we have the Azure Dragon, a heroic fantasy saga, Artar Chronicles book number 3, written by Vladimir Vasylenko. It is 312 pages, $5.99. It is not available on Kindle Unlimited. A lot of these Russian titles, when they get translated, don't initially come on Kindle Unlimited just because it costs so much. And they have it at other places sometimes for free to help promote it. And Kindle Unlimited requires exclusivity, so you'll get this a lot of times. But here's the author's description. He woke up at a strange, unfamiliar place, bound. The Steelhounds is a clan filled with the most unique people in the fantasy world of Artar. And Mongoose's squad is not the only one in it. A real-life mercenary is the leader of its most resultive and savage brunch. And now Mongoose's life is in his hands. He has to resolve a feud between two old and powerful, irreconcilable enemies in his clan, with a looming, interceding war of NPCs in the background. Being caught between Celia and Travelus, his personal goals are not set aside, and he is mastering his skills as a battle monk. Circumstances have developed fortunately and exactly in the location with their current mission. There is the Azure Dragon, the great altar of the elements of the tree. Okay, like folks, that's exactly what it said. Was not misreading that. That kind of tells you some of the issues with translation sometimes. Things don't always come out right. Okay, here's the review portion of this. This one lost me a little. I'll be honest and it's mostly because of the lack of lackluster RPG progression when it comes to the monk class. This was always kind of a lighter LitRPG story anyways. Like the author in his author bio kind of brags and says, oh yeah, the thing that distinguishes him as a Russian LitRPG author from others is that he doesn't really like game mechanics. He doesn't like a bunch of numbers in his stuff, so it always feels a little more towards fantasy. And that's definitely evident here in the third book in this series. There's still good action adventure stuff, good real life storylines with interesting quests. That's actually an enhancement from the other book in the series, that the real life stuff is moving in some weird twisted, or it's like kind of unforeseen twist that comes out of nowhere a little bit. But it's cool. It's not a bad storyline. But the things that I kind of liked about the series have been diminished as LitRPG. The group dynamics of the Steelhounds is absolute weekend. It feels like it almost feels like it's a different group here. Like it really is like a big shift from books 1 and 2 and 3 as far as like the group dynamics go. There's this weird forced suspicion thing happening in the storyline that just kind of ruins what was built up as good group bantering dynamics that was built in book 2. Also, the monk storyline in book 2 really kind of mimics the one from book 1 in that the main characters focus on completing quest to master an element. Only this time there's less training and exploration of this new element or monk powers, and there's like I said, a lot more limited RPG aspects here in a story that's already light on RPG stuff. And this kind of feels like a big loss because I mostly been reading this series because of how much I like the monk class, and I've always been curious about, okay, how would that storyline develop for that class? It's always been my favorite of mine to play in RPGs, whether it's tabletop or like video games. The monk has always been like a really fun class for me, and seeing it here was always exciting in book 1 and 2. Just in book 3, that part of the development cycle is just lessened, which means my enjoyment was lessened. Overall, the story just lost me. It minimizes the stuff I really liked about it, the RPG stuff, especially in the monk class details. But if you're into the series for the action and adventure aspects, that is still there. It really is. And the novel still might work for you. It just didn't for me because a lot of the other things that I enjoyed just were lessened and minimized or just didn't exist sometimes. And what is that? It's not bad writing. Some of the translation stuff is an issue. If you just read the novel description, you'll notice, those aren't right words, or that's not correctly written. And that happens with translation. So let's be aware of that. For me, though, it gets a score of 6 out of 10. The Azure Dragon, a heroic fantasy saga, the Artar Chronicles, book number 3, with the score of, again, 6 out of 10. Next, we have Rise of the Crimson Order, Crematoria Online, a LitRPG novel written by Matthew J. Barbeller. It is, where is it? 375 pages, $3.99. That is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description, and it's kind of long. Okay. Once you log in, you don't log out. Crematoria Online is the world's first alternative reality game. Players transfer their consciousness into the game world, and 10,000 souls were chosen as the first wave of crematorians. Once they log in, they find themselves trapped in this gothic horror fantasy world. Uncover the secrets of Crematoria. Lucas Hutchins chooses to play as an investigator, which gives him the ability to find clues and solve cases. But Crematoria is a world where everyone has a skeleton in their closet and secrets are buried deep. Armed with a sword and flintlock pistol, Lucas must defend himself against those who would kill to keep the truth hidden. 2 souls, 1 destiny. Lucas teams up with Ellie, a heavy armor-wearing enforcer for the Elden Judiciary. She is judge, jury, and executioner, all rolled into one. Together they seek truth and justice, but at what cost? The Crimson Order rises. The Crimson Queen... Oh man, this is so long. The Crimson Queen is building an army. Citizens from the length and breadth of Crematoria to spring, and a mysterious symbol is being left in their wake. The sigil of the Crimson Order. Lucas and Ellie must fight side by side or die to save a world that is holding them both hostage. If Crematoria burns, so will they. And there's a note saying that even though the author is Australian, the work has been written using American spelling and conventions. So that's a thing. Okay. Here's the review portion. Basically, the story didn't work for me. It already got a marker off with Flintlock. I'm not a big Flintlock fan. I'm like, just go full guns or go full fantasy. But like the in-between part with Flintlock always feels kind of awkward for me personally. So it's never really been a thing that I enjoyed. But overall, the story to me kind of tries to be a lot of different things all at once, and they don't really mesh well. Even from like the novel description, you can actually tell that there's like this conflicting personalities almost of the novel, where it's trying to be like this detective story, and this like fantasy story, and this like steampunkish Flintlock story, but also like this transported to a game world story, and like all those things mushed together, including like a real weirdish cyberpunk kind of ending here, just don't work well. And sometimes for me, when I was reading the story, I was like, there's like these distinct sections where it's like, oh, this is definitely a game section when he's talking to players, and then suddenly it feels like this regular non-LitRPG story where it's just fantasy, where he's talking to who are supposed to be NPCs, but it's just treated like it's like they're regular fantasy characters in this world, and the main character is just speaking, he's using code switching. I mean, it feels weird to me. Like, it doesn't feel like it's meshing very well. It's kind of the thing that didn't make the story work for me. There are actual, RPG game mechanics for the detective stuff. It is set in a VR MMO, so it is LitRPG. There's definitely, stat sheets and everything there, and character sheets and all that. So that's all there. But again, there's this mesh of concepts, and then that includes, for some reason, trapped in the game and also die in the game down to real life. I don't know that it adds anything to the story besides like, making sure the main character doesn't die or doesn't is motivated to do a thing. Seriously, for me, it's like I'm super tired of reading the I'm trapped in the game. The only way I can get out is to solve this puzzle or do this thing. It's completely unnecessary. And I feel like authors are like, they read or they watch Sword Art Online. I'm like, oh, so that's what LitRPG needs, like a requirement. Like, no, it isn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't add anything to the story, in my opinion. And it's completely. And I get when it's there and it works really well, but it doesn't really do anything for me. And I'm just, I'm super tired of it. But not that that's bringing this down too much. It's a minor thing, but a thing. The action of the story is okay. And again, this is one of those conflicting concepts in that it's supposed to be a video game. It's supposed to be like the main character can build skills and everything. But it also in the story has this weird descriptive quality, like, oh, this is supposed to be the most real story, real video game ever, and where you can do a one shot to a vital organ and insta kill a character. But at the same time, the main character doesn't have to actually he's magically kind of good with a flintlock and gun and a sword, and so like there's this weird, again, conflict and like meshing of different concepts of like, oh, super realistic fantasy story where skills matter, like real life skills matter, and video game mechanics that don't always mesh well, unfortunately. The game mechanics of the story are mostly fairly normal, with the most unique being the ones added for the detective elements. While they're well thought out and match elements from detective games, they kind of ruin the detective part of the story for me. And that's just because in the end, they kind of made me feel like all the clues and all the connections are provided by the game, and the main character is led by the nose to them. And it feels like he doesn't really earn the progress on his cases because, again, the game mechanics are pointing it out for him. It's like he's pressing a button or activating a skill, and suddenly, oh, there's the clue he needs. And sometimes he's literally giving the information and the connections from those, for those clues to figure out the case or whatever. And I feel like, oh, that could have been a neat detective thing, but it's not anymore. And it just didn't work for me. Overall, I never cared for the character. And again, many elements didn't really mesh well together for me in regards to the detective, and the action elements, they felt kind of forced sometimes. And so it just didn't work for me. So for me, it gets a score 6 out of 10. Again, not a bad review score. It's just didn't work for me. Might work for other people who enjoy, who really love detective game stuff, or who love flintlock stories, or don't mind kind of the conflicting nature of it, might really enjoy this better. But for me, it didn't work. That's Rise of the Crimson Order, though, a Crematoria online LitRPG novel with a score of 6 out of 10. And next we have Phoenix of Altria, a digital sorcery book number 2, a LitRPG series written by David M. Zan. It is 290 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Witness the rise of a phoenix, or at least the world's worst gamer, learning to make use of his stat page. The Altarian town of Rose Lake suffers from a vanishing villager problem that has gone largely ignored, but now that the guards are gone missing and all forms of communication from within the game are blocked, it's time for the governess to intervene. She'd prefer with someone she won't miss. Caught illegally crossing over the border, Rylan and co. have been politely ordered to investigate. However, with this ragtag group of misfits involved, nothing can go smoothly. Eldritch threatens to blow their cover, and half the town along with it. Rhonda is desperate to foster a relationship with the clergy. Despite being past puberty, Ilaria must resist shoving something hard and pointy into everyone's favorite elf, and Rylan faces his greatest challenge at achieving a basic level of competence. Will they succeed? Probably not. It's also noted that the book is rated M for mature. It contains adult humor that may not be suitable for minors or those who are easily offended, and that's absolutely true. There's not really much to say about that. The storyline is pretty slice of life. It's adventure-ish. But again, you can have that in a lot of places. The thing that is going to be a big draw for people on the series is the adult humor. Like, if you like sex jokes, if you like cursing, and if you like that kind of sense of humor that you'll find in films, you're going to enjoy the story. If you don't, you're not. It's really that simple. I think book 2 is an improvement over book 1 in the fact that you get to the stuff that's good in the story a lot. So like from the very first pages, it's already throwing out such jokes. And if it really just picks up from the end of book 1 in that characters are in courtrooms and they're being accused of crimes, and it's all humorous and misunderstandings, and it's a bunch of fun stuff. But again, it's a kind of adult humor that'll either make you snort in delight or it's going to offend you. And there's not two ways about it. It really is. There's still RPG progression here, good action, good adventure. But again, this specific humor is going to be the draw. If you're okay with sex jokes and cursing potty humor, you're probably going to be fine with this. There aren't a lot of humorous LitRPG stories where like they're intentionally like trying to jab you and trying to make fun of you and trying to do a bunch of like stand-up jokes or jokes. And this is one of them. So I like it. I like it probably a little bit less than the Critical Failure series, but it's along the same lines of humor. I think that Critical Failure series has a little more better group banter, and it just set in a different setting. But this one, it's not a lot. It's still good. But they have the same kind of sense of humor. So if you like that series, you might like this one as well. Give it a shot. I personally appreciated the faster beginning and the small moments that revealed deeper backstory of the characters. I thought those were nice little additions, even though they're like small scenes. They helped counterbalance all the body humor. For me, it gets a score of 7.5 out of 10. That's the Phoenix of Altria Digital Sorcery, book number 2, a LitRPG series, with the score of 7.5 out of 10. I liked it. And next we have Executioner, Reign of Blood, a LitRPG novel, Chasms of Corruption, book number 2, written by Edwin McCrae. It is 330 pages, $4.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Warning, this description contains spoilers for Warlock Reigns of Blood. Mark isn't the only player in Reign of Blood. Arix the Damned has been torn from his real life as a celebrity gamer and enslaved by Reaver Inquisitor. His agile, axe-wielding executioner class fits him like a gauntlet, but Arix is helpless to escape the Inquisitor's collar as she forces him to explore the Barrens in search of 3 sacrificial altars with apocalyptic powers. All that changes when his flight from a boss fight puts him in the path of Mark, Very Bramer, and Citadel. But while the Warlock strives to complete the Chasms of Corruption quest and protect Garland from the Inquisitor Karina's cataclysmic designs, the Executioner has other plans. Arix just wants to go home. Capturing Karina is the key to that, and though Mark seems determined to live and die in a fantasy land of Reign of Blood, Arix wants him to wake up from his digital delusion, and he's going to make Mark face reality, whether the Warlock likes it or not. If you love... Oh, and then the rest is just if you love this, try this. Blah, blah. Okay. And that is honestly that really honest plot, and it kind of spoils some stuff, to be honest. Okay, the novel on the whole is enjoyable, but I liked it less than book 1. The story has good characters, good character actions. There's again a separate villain narrative, which I always enjoyed. Good action, good adventure, good RPG progression that you've probably enjoyed from book 1 if you remember it. However, a couple things in this story just made it less enjoyable than book 1 for me. One, there's no recap. And it's been about, I think, 8 months since book 1 came out, and I've read a ton of stuff since then. And so it's really hard for me to remember who anybody was, what the plotline was, and why I should care about these characters. It comes back eventually, but again, it's kind of a long lead into where I was like, oh yeah, those people, that's right, I like them for some reason. Why is that? Oh yeah, that just took a little while. This was especially the case with like a death of a certain character, which is a little spoiler, but I'm mentioning just because I didn't care about the death, and I think that's a sad note in that a simple recap would have like refreshed my memory about why this person is important, why their death should be super impactful, because that didn't occur in the novel for me. That death didn't have the impact I think that was desired, which is unfortunate because anytime you kill a character, it should have an impact. 2, the new character is very hard to like in any way, and his arc does not end satisfying, for me at least, especially considering what he does in the story, which is kind of hinted at in the novel description. And 3rd, the ending in general just wasn't satisfying. The bad guys, while very dark and bad people, they didn't get their just desserts. Their ending wasn't equal to all the bad stuff they did and the betrayals that occurred. And part of that is the fact that the novel is meant to end a particular arc, even though it's a two book series so far. This book is meant to end a particular arc in this series, and it's supposed to wrap up this arc so that can set up future stories or just end kind of the storyline to a degree. And so to do that, certain things have to happen. And I won't spoil them for you, but it left me feeling like, oh, that doesn't feel righteous. If that makes sense. Overall, though, the story is still good. Like I said, a lot of good elements from book one still exist. And again, while it took a little while to reconnect to the story, and honestly, I never really remembered some things, eventually the well-written characters, general adventuring were enough to keep things entertaining, and the RPG progression was detailed enough to keep my interest, if barely. For me, it gets a score of 7.1 out of 10, which is like the lowest of the good scale for me. But it's still enjoyable. I'm not saying it's badly written or anything like that. It's just, there were issues for me that made it harder to reconnect. That's Execution or Reign of Blood, a LitRPG novel, Chasms of Corruption, book number 2, with a score of 7.1 out of 10. And next is going to be Sentenced to Troll, written by S.L. Rowland. It is 290 pages, $4.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. And here's the author's description. Blue, big, and ugly. Who says a troll can't be a hero? Chad's 30-day sentence may be over, but his trolling has just begun. Forsaking his old ways, he fully embraces the future as Chad, the hero of the forest trolls. But life in Isle of Mythos isn't easy for a barbarian summoner. Chad has angered more than one felon on his quest to save his people from extinction, and they've sworn vengeance. With a target on his back, Chad is about to find out how difficult the world can be for a hero that looks like a monster. Okay, and that's a decent-ish description, I guess. I enjoyed the novel. Didn't enjoy this book as much as book one. The story has the same characters that are very likable. There is less focus on the troll society aspect that was introduced in book one, which I was hoping to be the opposite of the case. Instead, you kind of get this slice of life exploration action adventure story with the main character and his newly introduced friend, who plays as a dwarven druid, just going off on adventures. You get a peek at their cultures, mountain trolls, the dwarves, but nothing as focused culturally as book one. It's again, an entertaining story. It's just like it becomes something slightly different than was introduced in book one, and it becomes a little more, I've kind of read this before a little bit. So that's it for me. Easy review. Enjoyed it, just not as much as book one. Took a score of 7.2 out of 10. That's Sentenced to Troll, book number 2, with a score of 7.2 out of 10. And next we have Monster, LitRPG series, The Beetle by Sergei Belsky. It is 459 pages, $2.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. Looking for something new? Here is a new LitRPG series with an unusual MC. The main character is a virtual game developer who forces his way into the game. His character is a beetle who has lost his memory and doesn't consider himself a monster. He begins to upgrade his skills and get different achievements. He's trying to get to the truth as he pieces together shards of his memories he can't completely trust. As his intelligence grows, his memories are coming back. The realm he falls into is an underground world which consists of 10 levels with different caves, tunnels, and monsters. The dungeons are full of hostile beetles of different types, forms, and sizes. There is a clear hierarchy and division between them. At the same time, the two endless wars are going on, one between the monsters clans and the other between monsters and humans. And that's it. So this is a Russian translation, and you can kind of tell from the novel description there a little bit. Review portion. This is a re-monster book. It's not really that complicated. And for those who don't know what that is, it's where a main character is reincarnated as a monster instead of a person. So you're kind of getting this point of view that's not necessarily from the human perspective. And you usually get some insight into like how this monster evolves and changes and grows as an RPG fashion. That isn't necessarily class-based, and so it's a whole different system usually with evolutions. This one is kind of a mix between like that and a traditional MMO setting. The main character can absorb attributes from other monsters, like certain body parts, characteristics, and evolve his body specifically, like his mind versus his arms and his hands and his legs and his digestive system and his lungs, and he can do that by spending experience points. And eventually he'll gain levels that increases overall health and power and things. So there's definitely an RPG, path here. The early part of the story mostly focuses on that, and I think that's the part I enjoyed the most, just because again it is a bit different than your normal action adventure stuff. And eventually the story shifts into that other form where it's the main character in the beginning, like as a newborn monster, learning the rules, the evolutionary path, and then it expands beyond the monster starter zones into kind of this larger human world with human players of various classes. And it becomes a little more slice of life. And it's neat to see, for me, the evolutions the main character takes, how his view of the world is shaped by being a monster, or being at least born into like this monster culture. It's not an overly complicated story, but it's entertaining. And that's all you really kind of need. So if you're looking for something where it's a monster main character story, this will definitely do it for you. And it's entertaining. Not super amazing, but like pretty middle of the road entertaining. For me, it gets a score of 7.5 out of 10. Good. There are, again, a few translation issues that you're going to notice with any Russian translation, any kind of translation work. But overall, entertaining story. That's Monster LitRPG series, The Beetle, with a score of 7.5 out of 10. And that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening and watching this show. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube, Patreon, on our website at litrpgpodcast.com. And of course, there are plenty of other pages, and you can find LitRPG authors and readers congregating and joking and having a good time. If you enjoy the podcast in any way, shape, or form, you want to support us, you can find all the ways to do so at litrpgpodcast.com/support. But again, thanks for hanging out with me today, ladies and gentlemen. I do this because I love the genre, because I love reading, and I always want to share with you folks the good stuff with the not so good stuff, and help you to choose which things you're going to read, because there's a lot of stuff that comes out every week now, and not all of it is good, and not all of it is even actually lit RPG, and trying to help out with that. But until we can hang out again, ladies and gentlemen, remember to go read some lit RPG. Goodbye, everybody.